Hey, HRN listeners, mark your calendars for Sunday, October 13th. HRN and the National Young Farmers Coalition are teaming up for a special event at Churchtown Dairy in Hudson, New York. In honor of National Farmers Day, we'll be celebrating with local food, a screening of the documentary Common Ground, and a live panel featuring Lee Penniman of Soulfire Farm, Chris Nickel of Finca Ceremos, and more. The first 50 people to register get a free gift at the door. It's a fundraiser for young farmers and HRN supporting farmer leadership, HRN's education programs, and Farm Bill advocacy. Don't miss out. Head to support.youngfarmers.org/cgfilm to reserve your ticket today.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hey, road trippers, because so many of you asked us to do it, and because the packaged group paid us, we've launched a new podcast, Agave Road Show. Podcast that profiles different brands of agave spirits, and maybe other Mexican spirits, and possibly Romanian beer or flaming hot Cheetos. Really, whatever we get paid to profile. The first episode drops Friday, October 11th, and features G4 Tequila and the magnificent mad scientist Felipe Camarena. Get Agave Roadshow wherever you access your favorite podcast, or find it on agaveroadtrip.com. If you've been hearing a lot about or reading a lot about Mezcal lately, it's because Mezcal is having a moment. So what's the deal? Well, it's often handmade using pre-industrial methods. It's not cookie cutter like so much of what we eat and drink these days. And when you taste it, if you know how to taste it, you'll recognize exactly that. Recognize the heartbeat that is the lifeblood of this movement. But the growing interest means to fulfill demand, corners are starting to be cut. Well, that's not the case with Mezcal Ultramundo, an exceptional small batch mezcal from Durango. It's made from wild Lamparillo agaves harvested sustainably from a 24,000-acre ranch that's home to purple nopales, wild desert tortoises, all manner of biodiversity. And Mezcal Ultramundo never harvests more than 80% of their mature agaves. They ensure that every harvested plant is replaced in its wild setting by a next-generation seedling. If you want to taste the wild deserts of Durango, Mexico, taste Mezcal Ultramundo and know that with every sip, you'll also be protecting those wild deserts. I'm Lou Bank.
And I'm Craig Reynolds.
And this is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps green geeks, bartenders, bitters in agave spirits, and rural Mexico. Craig, I am so honored to have you join me on the podcast.
Well, it's mutual.
So
thank you.
Thank you. So, but having said that, I'm still gonna come at you because you threw a gauntlet down. You threw a gauntlet down at me. Well, not at me, in front of me. On my
No, I'm trying to remember what I threw.
No, it's okay because I've got it right here in writing. I'm ready for you, Craig. So there was an Instagram post about an episode that we did recently. I want to say it was the Mezcal is Smoky Tequila episode.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And you wrote, there is, and I'm quoting here, there is virtually no significant amount of truly traditionally produced mezcal left in the marketplace. It's not environmentally or economically sustainable, an unfortunate fact that is difficult to accept.
Wow.
And, I'm going to say, oh, well, you're not going to walk that back. You have a look on your face.
I got to walk that back a little bit. Depends.
Well, before you do, I'll say, I actually half agree with what you wrote there. But you followed it up with, according to the CRM, only 1/3 of 1% of mezcal is ancestral, the kind most aficionados revere. Almost all the rest of mezcal is classified as artisanal, which includes most industrial practices, machines and brick ovens. also used in most tequilas. So before we
then
start,
I'm just quoting the CRM, so I'll stand by them as long as they, So I'm just conveying their information. Yeah. So I guess my perspective is this, that and I can actually take either side of the debate, and I know we like the debating is kind of what Lou does the best, and the purpose of the debate is to
the most maybe not the best, but
the most. But that's what makes your show exciting, is the dialogue and it's kind of
the push and
debate.
pull.
But
yeah,
and to me, again, the purpose in the end is to just create more education on all our, and I expect to learn more than I can teach on this, because that's really not my expertise. I follow mezcal and tequila a lot, and and enough of a nerd to even watch your show. So there, and you cover both the agave, mezcal, and tequila.
Well, agave spirits and rural Mexico.
Yes, and rural Mexico. So if I were to say what the debate was to create a beneficial discussion, is do mezcal and tequila have more in common or less in common than people think?
Oh, God, that might change the title of the episode. I guess everybody listening already knows the answer to that, but I don't know the answer yet.
So I could argue, you can argue it either way, but since I suggested the topic, I'll take the view that they have more in common than they do different. So it's kind of like the debate between Kamala and Trump, and so I'll take the Kamala side and say that we have a lot more in common than what separates us. And you can take the Trump side and say, oh, it's kind of you. Yeah. They're very no, we're very different, and those differences are what divide us, and we need to be loyal to those differences and purity. So what?
You came out of the world of politics in California, didn't you? You really know how to reframe a debate. But hey, I'm in. If that's the new debate, I'm in for that, Craig. So throw it at me. What's your argument?
My argument, and this actually goes, it's not just unique to the agave world. This is in botany. There are lumpers and splitters. And this is not just true in botany. It's true in religion. There's people who say, hey, there's Christians. Yeah, but there's 100 different sects. There's, and Hindus. Are we all Hindus, or we got a bunch of different sects. So and it happens in.
Where the hell are you taking this conversation? You've lost me, Craig.
Okay, where I'm going is lumpers and splitters. So what people would say, what is the main difference between mezcal and tequila?
Oh, well, okay. See, now I would argue
the main difference
it's
is,
theoretical difference.
Well, the main difference legally is the distinction, but based on their organizing appellations and denominations of origin.
Yeah. I'm primarily from Appalachia, by the
way. Is the variety of the agave. Because you can make mezcal the same way you make tequila.
Yep.
As long and you can make tequila the same way you make mezcal.
Yep.
So the only difference for the tequila is that it must be the Tequilana Weber Azul, and it must be in this particular region. That's the fundamental difference. Yeah. And if you just historically look at Mexico, all agave spirits were mezcal.
Okay. Historically. Okay, sure. I'm going to take that buzz back.
Originally.
Can you just do a reverse on that buzzer for me, Roy? Cool. Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So what created this? When did mezcal start becoming tequila? Well, and why? Why? And it's why boundaries and denominations of origin have always been created. Yeah. They're created by powerful interests to profit and suppress the powerless. They're never created to support the powerless against the powerful.
Sure.
That's how it was created.
Sure.
The tequila denomination of origin was created by the big families in tequila region.
Yeah.
To monopolize the market.
Yep.
And a similar thing has happened with mezcal since then.
Yeah, no argument.
Fundamentally, to get back to the key question, what's the difference? We have a lot more in common in that we're all distilled agave. That's what we have in common. So what separates them? Well, and in terms of my
I think you're trying to run out the clock. Are you trying to run out the clock?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fine. But look, I'm the California agave guy. So I gotta point out that we have no interest in calling California agave tequila, even if we could, or mezcal, even if we could, because it's not.
Right.
Because not because of what it is, but because those words have meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Mezcal has a meaning that infers strongly that it's from Mexico,
mm-hmm.
as does tequila.
Mm-hmm.
And not just because it's legally that way, but the traditions are long and need to be respected. And those words need to be respected because they mean something.
Sure.
So but when it boils down to it, it's all agave spirits. And so what are the differences? The differences in terms of ancestral mezcal
mm-hmm.
are definitely the process.
Oh,
as
sure.
well.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. And that process, once you get beyond, which is, the whether it's a clay stills,
sure,
and
clay pot
fermentation and wild
milling by hand or milling
by hand,
stone
stone and all that.
Yeah.
Well, my point, I guess, what provoked your ire was that, hey, very little in terms of the actual volume of what mezcal is produced that way. Now, the ancestral category, totally that way to meet that definition.
Right. Sure.
Now,
no
the
argument.
Artisanal category is very broad. And yes, there's a whole lot of artisanal mezcal that is cooked in the ground, for example.
Yeah.
But there's also a whole lot of artisanal mezcal that is not cooked in the ground.
Okay, that's exactly the point I want to jump at you on.
Okay.
Now, the howler monkey is loose. So, okay, so who? Like when I look at artisanal mezcal, I think we can be very dismissive of a place like Santiago Matatlan, let's say, that produces a lot of the mezcal that you find in the well in a bar. And it's labeled Mezcal Artisanal. And because you see a lot of it, it's easy to dismiss it. But when I go to Santiago Matatlan, and I'm not saying, Zignum outside of Matatlan, and frankly, I never see Zignum in a well. When I go and I see the Matatlan and I get even like my own prejudices start to rise up. But truthfully, if I go to Santiago Matatlan and I visit any one of these mezcaleros, it is so rare that I don't see an underground earthen oven. It is so rare that I don't see a Tahona. It is so rare that I don't see open wooden barrels. It is so rare that I don't see a wood-fired copper pot still. And if you compare that to any spirit, including tequila, it is significantly. I'm not saying you can't make mezcal in the exact. Of course you can. The exact same ways you make. And my friends at Zignum do that with a diffuser. But the vast majority of mezcal, I would contend, well, I'll argue because you like me when I argue, is in fact made in a much more pre-industrial manner than the average tequila.
Well, I would agree with you. I wouldn't disagree with you at all.
And we'll call that a wrap. Wait.
No, my point only was, people, a few things. It's interesting. Like there are 6 brands of or I should add, of mezcal that occupy, fill in the, what do you think percent of the market for the top six brands?
Oh, the top six brands, I would guess probably 70%.
No, it's like 40, 45.
Oh, seriously, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And, well, if you go down to 12, I don't know beyond that. And again, I'm not an expert on this. I'm just reading the latest reports, on mezcalistas from their analysis and this, whatever you call it these days. So, and like one of them, for example, is 400 conejos.
Yeah.
It's
careful.
Well,
do you know the people who make it?
I'm not dissing it.
No, it's okay. You can diss it if you want. I just want to know.
No,
have you ever been to the factory?
No, of course not.
Or the palenque? Because I
palenque. No, I'm not. All I'm saying is there are many different combinations. So at least what I read from them was that they use a brick oven now.
What?
But
where'd you read that?
On when I looked at 400 conejos, because they've decided it was more environmentally sustainable.
Oh, I haven't seen that. Hang on a second. Yeah. That's weird, because
So
I know a guy who's making some of that, and he's not.
Yeah, that's what I read on their website story.
Oh. In a follow-up conversation, Craig walked this back, saying he rechecked the website of 400 Conejos, could not find anything there about cooking in ovens.
But they're also using a Tahona. Now, on the other side, you've got Del Maguey that's using cooking in a pit.
Did you really just mispronounce Del Maguey?
Del Maguey, sorry.
It's okay. I like if there's one of us who's going to mispronounce Spanish on this podcast, it's me.
It's going to be me.
Me. Anyway, sorry, keep going. So
no, actually, one of the things I am embarrassed is that my Spanish is even worse than yours.
Not a chance. That'll be the next episode.
So, anyway, what I'm getting at there is there's hybrids of production methods that use some traditional and some modern, and for different reasons.
Sure. So,
and in both those cases, and if you, and maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I checked out, was that one brand of mezcal was doing a more traditional crush, but a modern cook.
Yeah.
The other was using a modern traditional cook, but a modern crush. So there are these different combinations and hybrid of processes that go on in the production of mezcal. When I talk most or whatever, I'm really referring to the volume,
sure,
not the number of brands.
Yeah, no, I get
so
that.
There's no
fair.
question that the vast number of brands are the ones, just like I visited with you in Southern Jalisco.
Yeah.
But even those guys weren't using Tahonas. They had in the past. They were all using wood chippers.
Yep.
Every one of them. And these guys have been, they're from generations and doing it in stone, fermenting in the ground in stone caves and or whatever.
Stone caves.
Whatever.
They were getting stoned in the cave while they were.
Yeah. So this is, and when I talk about the sustainability of mezcal, I'm not the first guy. Mezcal people are worried about it.
Yeah.
And the sustainability of traditional or the full tradition of mezcal, I argue in terms of what does that entail? It entails harvesting wild agaves. That's traditionally it weren't cultivated agave.
Oh, I push back against that, but I get what you're saying.
But it was Silvestre. I mean, pretty much that.
That whole wild and Silvestre thing, honestly, I think is sort of a misnomer. I think like we see milpa that has agave growing in it, and we go, that's wild, because it's not just row after row. But anyway,
in other words, modern agricultural cultivation, row cropping of agave, is not what you would call the ancestral, most traditional source of mezcal.
Sure.
Okay. Well, in going out in people there, there's a lot of concern about over harvesting wild agave.
Oh, wait, are we going to go down that road? Because that's a whole different argument.
Okay. Well, I'm not. I don't want to go because I don't really know it that well, and I could get lost on that road, and I never come back.
There you go.
And you don't want to get lost on the agave road trip. I'll
No,
tell
you
that,
do not, unless you've got good snacks.
I've actually been on an agave road trip with Lou Bank, and I can tell you, folks, you do not want to get lost on an agave road trip with Lou Bank.
I get grumpy. I get very grumpy.
Well, there's a lot of bad things that can happen. So anyway, so let's not go down that road, but there are other ones that, firewood, burning firewood, to cook put it this way, to cook, if you wanted to make all agave spirits, the traditional way, cooked in the ground. Yeah. With wood. Yeah. That is not environmentally sustainable.
No, but I would also argue, honestly.
No, when I'm talking about all agave spirits, which is tequila.
No, I get it. I get
97% of all agave spirits are not cooked in the ground.
But look, Craig, I would also argue, like what you're saying is true, but I would also argue that it is true because, again, I'm good. I like arguing is my love language. I would argue that it's not sustainable to put a spirit in a bottle in Mexico, a bunch of bottles, and then in a wooden box or a cardboard box, and then ship it to Asia.
A semi truck or in a container, or ship it there.
Yeah. Like it's like none of this is what I would call sustainable. Sustainable is just drinking the beer that's made nearby, 20 miles from you. That's right. And even that's not 100% sustainable, but significantly more.
And people want that. People, and I'm coming from the farm to fork capital. We like to call ourselves, Sacramento area, the farm to fork capital of the world. Yeah. And because we're fortunate that we can grow almost anything around here and we produce almost, and you're there in Chicago, although your backdrop are these giant agaves. I think you're in Chicago.
But I grow agaves in my basement. So
yeah. But so the pizza you eat there is most likely that the marinara sauce came from tomatoes grown just a few miles from me.
Oh yeah, exactly. I thought you were going to say by me. And then the wheat is
And so that's just getting back to what we're doing. Yeah, has really not has why I'm sensitive to the sustainability. What we're doing in California is a response to climate change. The reason we're growing agave in California to make spirits.
Are you reframing again? Let's reframe again. Okay, so now instead, let's actually, because I would love to talk to you about this. Let's talk about your project, right?
Sure. Well, and I'll say
you're making California cooking. Mexico again. I love it.
Yeah, and because this gets back to our lumping and splitting, and we can talk about boundaries too. I want to talk about that. Why I'm not a big fan, because they're created by man, powerful interests. Man created boundaries.
Sometimes women, but yeah.
Kind of a new thing. Well, most of them were
old white men like us. Yeah.
Women haven't created. Well, they're mostly created by men. The current boundaries that we're stuck with, I don't know if many women have created them.
Another walk back from Craig. After the episode, he texted, I'm probably wrong about women creating borders. There have been some queens in charge back in the day.
They would have been better boundaries had they been. But so the boundary between Mexico and California is a fairly recent one. Yeah. That's what I like to want to point out to folks that when you say make California Mexico again, I do want to get that hat. We've only been not Mexico for about 180 years. Yeah. So California not being Mexico is a real recent phenomenon historically.
Sure.
And not only that, today, 31% of all Californians self-identify as Mexican American. That's 12 million people in California self-identify as. And many of those, not many of all that 12 million, but many of our growers in California are Mexican American and with families, first and second generation. From Jalisco and Michoacan, and some from Oaxaca, although mostly from more central Mexico, because that's where many of the farm workers come from. But anyway, but we created, why we're growing in California, or at least why I started, and most of the folks that have come on board, is because climate change has created incredible pressure on California agriculture in terms of water and drought. We've always had droughts, but we have longer and more frequent droughts. On top of that, we have severe groundwater issues, overdrafting of our groundwater. Cutbacks in our water.
I don't eat your almonds anymore. I won't eat your almonds. I will eat your avocados though, so I'm hypocritical.
And our largest grower, that's the thing. Our largest grower is one of the largest almond growers in California, who is faced with having to fallow thousands of his acres. In fact, the projections by University of California, Berkeley, are that we may have to fallow 800,000 acres of productive farmland due to cutbacks on water in the next 20 years. So we're looking down the barrel of fallowing some of the most productive agricultural land in the world. And so agave, when I planted my first crop 10 years ago, I did it because I thought it was possible. I didn't actually predict I thought it would fail, frankly. But I wanted to test my theory. I kept telling the almond guys, you guys are growing the wrong crop. That's why we're fighting you over our water. I live in Northern California. They're in the valley. They wanted to take my water, right? But I said, you're growing the wrong crop. You should be growing agave and making tequila or mezcal or whatever.
Careful, watch it.
Agave spirits. I got smart. Okay. But so they would, if I said agave, they wouldn't know what I was talking about.
No, they wouldn't.
But so anyway, so I planted 500 plants, and then I also got some mature agaves from a guy down in Riverside, from which I got pups and planted. But we made our first batch, and I'm not. You might have thought I'm against cooking agave in the ground. No, I made a Oaxacan style pit out of stone for a 3-ton pit, which is pretty small.
Why don't you give Michoacan or Puebla any credit for that? Why does it have to be Oaxacan? I'm just love languages arguing. Anyway,
well, it's actually I was just it's a what I'd say traditional Mexican agave stone.
Oh, I like that. Okay, I like that's good.
If you want to get,
there's some tribes in Arizona that wouldn't want you to hear that, but
well, it's a
traditional earthen pit.
Inverse truncated cone.
So
it's a truncated cone inverse. So that's
truncated cone. God, I want that to be my DJ name. But so the one thing, first of all, I'm all in favor of what you're doing.
And we used almond wood to cook our agave. That's a wonderful.
That is so poetic.
Yeah, it is.
Burning down the almond trees
And the thing is, we don't have to take down wild. The challenge, frankly, in Oaxaca, and I've been out to Tospa, where you need a permit to cut down a hardwood tree.
Right.
So it's a real problem. Well, here we're taking out almonds and walnuts, and we're taking out hardwoods. So we've got a lot of wood, but it's ultimately it would be an air quality issue and also a carbon emissions issue.
Sure.
So I don't think in terms of the carbon emissions that supplying the world's agave.
I forgot we were talking about wood. Yeah. Well, but
the world's it would not be. So having a solar power.
Craig, the point is, you keep reframing and reframing. And damn it, I just want to stay on one topic.
Okay.
So,
sorry.
I agree with you. We can't cook all of it with wood. I still like having some of it cooked with wood because we should allow families who want to maintain the tradition. Yes, but the vast majority. But let's get back to what you're doing, because I really do dig what you're doing, and I'm not one of the haters who's angry at you for trying to start this industry in California. I applaud you.
Thank you. and there aren't many anyway, so I'm not too worried about it.
There's Adam Lambert, and I love that guy. But so the one thing that I did see in an online post, and I don't remember who wrote it. If I can find it, I'll put it in the notes. Was the question of why aren't you using species that are native to California, or are the species you're using that? Why? There's the question.
Well, basically, because we're in California, and basically none of what we grow in California is native to California.
When you say
Basically,
none of what you grow, you mean agave or anything?
Anything.
Huh?
And basically, none of what anybody grows in the world to feed the world is native to where it's grown.
Well, now that's not true, because I'm drinking agave spirits that are made from agave that is grown in Oaxaca and Michoacan.
I'm talking about the world that is food and wine and whatever. And actually, you know what? Native is, when does nativity begin? Agave started in Ecuador about 7,000 years ago, before it ever went to Mexico. So
wait, hang on a second. It did it? Because I thought,
Yes.
I thought the whole, the whole idea of an endemic species is this is where the species was born, right?
Well, there's two different, endemic and native are two different things.
Really?
Yes.
Okay,
Endemic.
explain.
So we have, for example, we have agave Americana.
Yeah.
Is endemic in California, but I don't know. It's debatable whether it's native or not. How did it get here? Most plants in the world got to where they are with people taking them there.
Greg had that flipped. Endemic is actually where a species started. Native, according to treehugger.com, is, quote, found in a certain ecosystem due to natural processes, unquote. Yeah, I get it. Like cacao.
Birds. So that's what's happened. And that's what happened with the tomatoes and wine.
Yeah, sure. But it had to
basically
started somewhere.
Everything on your dinner table. Put it this way: forget spirit.
Was it in the Garden of Eden? Are we talking about the Garden of Eden, Greg? Where did it all start?
We're talking about tomatoes. Where did it all start?
Tomatoes? Tomatoes started over here in Mesoamerica. Somewhere here. I don't know where specifically, but somewhere here. So, but I thought endemic.
Pardon me. I do want to walk back. I was talking about the tomato started in Ecuador, and then it came to Mexico. Not the agave. Pardon me. I was talking about.
Okay, Roy, I need you to reverse everything that he just said and I just said. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
But I want to go back to agave a little bit in Mexico. Much of the agave grown in Mexico is not grown in areas where it was native.
No argument. I get that. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's traveled. Agave has been transported all over Mexico.
Yeah, well, hey, God, but you're like now in essence, what you're doing is I would argue, because I would argue that you're arguing that you're building an excuse for growing any agave. But I'm asking you sincerely, like there have to be agave species that are native to California.
Very, very few, and they're not very suitable for. And they're in the there's agave deserti and Murphyii. There are several in the.
So the bricks count is low. Like it doesn't have a lot of yield.
Yeah, and they're not. Yeah, they're not productive, and so on. And as is true with many agave, so not all agave are suitable for food and spirit production.
But you could do. God, that makes me like I want to find somebody who's got some of those. I want to taste that spirit because I think about like a tepestate.
We have people growing it, and I don't mean that it can't be done.
Is Adam doing? Because Adam would convert that for me. Adam loves me.
Well, I don't know Adam, but
you don't know Adam. He's part of your council. You need to get Adam Lambert. He was never on The Voice, but it's Adam Lambert. Just go look him up. Trust me. Anyway, I would love to find somebody who's got Adam. If you've got that, just send me an email. But if I would love to find somebody who's got one of those agaves because I think about like tepestate. That takes so many plants, so many kilos of plant to make a liter. And I wonder if it's not the same case with some of these other. And I'm not saying that then you shouldn't be growing the others.
No. Well, we're gonna do what we're gonna do. We're doing it. We're not doing it to
make me happy.
No, and we're not doing it. Some people will do that. I can't speak for all the people. We have of all, 100 growers or whatever. Every single one of them has their own story, their own purpose. Just like in Mezcal world.
Sure.
No two of those Palenques are alike. None of them.
Sure.
They may, they look alike, but none of them go about it the same way. Everybody's got their own wrinkle. And that's true with us too. Everyone's got their own what drives them. So I'm driven by climate change. Other people have more of an affinity maybe for the different varieties that go into the mezcals that they appreciate, and they want to recreate that. Others are farmers who are looking for an alternative crop so they can survive and keep doing what they do. And the other crops they grow, whether there's avocados and almonds, and none of them are native to where they're growing. And they're, the heartland of California, the Central Valley, there are very few the native plants are not agricultural products, are not food products. The native plants are what other people would call weeds. But they're,
I understand though, there's a lot of weed consumption in California.
There is. And actually one of our growers is a cannabis grower who's decided to move into agave instead.
So not growing them together. That'd be interesting.
No. But so, we don't have a tradition of that. We do have a few Southern California Indian tribes for whom agave was a food source. Just as it was for the pre-Hispanic Mexican culture, and I think
tribes in Arizona and New Mexico.
And I think it's pretty much even, my friends, the Colungas Zumbos, who came up with a theory on how there could have been pre-Hispanic distillation. It's unlikely that it actually occurred. And so what you're talking about in the first place is a colonial, a fusion of colonists taking a food source of the indigenous people and distilling it because that's what they wanted to do.
Sure. I want to get drunker faster.
They wanted, so it's this fusion. It's not a pure indigenous native cultural thing. So it then evolved. And, in other words, that's only 450 years old. And so I see things in historic terms.
Well, I get it. You and I are about the same age, so we both look at things in thousands of years. Yeah, it's a 30,000-foot view.
So that's what I was saying. California being separate from Mexico is a blip, a recent blip in history, and the colonial invasion of Mexico is also fairly recent.
And Mexico being Mexico is fairly recent.
Mexico being Mexico. So hang on. So then let's get back to the very, the foundational point of what I thought this episode was about. Which is, you're not suggesting that tequila and mezcal are made the same way, just that they can be made the same way. Yeah, and some are, and that we...
But most aren't.
The people...
But most aren't.
People like to separate themselves.
I want to hear most aren't.
Well, mostly are not in terms of the different labels. Brands. But when it comes to volume,
I still think they're not.
They have more in common.
I disagree. But the direction we're going is that
tequilas also. More of them are attempting. They're going higher proof. Some of them.
Oh, they're moving to the Tahona, and
some of them.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all appealing to a very super high end market, not the one that can. Not the one that's going to penetrate the overall volume numbers. So you can come up with the examples on both. I think on the tequila side,
Ocho probably, El Tesoro.
Well,
I don't know. But I'm with you. Yeah, no, for the vast majority, there's one guy doing the pit cooking, and there's one guy doing milling by hand, and God bless David Suro for that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I think it's fabulous. I mean, I think most people would be surprised at how small a portion of the agave spirits market mezcal is.
Based
on
yeah.
how much attention it gets in terms of the media.
Well, hang on a second. When you say agave spirits, are you talking about you're including tequila?
Yeah.
Oh no, then you're just wrong. Because when you are you talking about the entire market of everything we consume?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. But
Volume.
if you're talking about the portion of the market of what we drink that is a spirit, now it's actually pretty significant.
Of agave spirit.
Agave spirit. If you're talking about tequila plus mezcal plus bacanora plus uncertified agave spirit, raicilla.
Well, the numbers are mezcal.
Mezcal is 3.5% of tequila, but tequila, like if you add those two together and you start looking at the numbers from DISCUS, right, the Distilled Spirits Council of the U.S.
Right.
No. Like it is, and then you add all of their random whiskey categories together. It's
No. I'm not talking about. I'm
half
talking about agave spirits. That's what I'm talking about. When you said 3% of tequila, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh,
most people.
That's really small. Yes, 3.5%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, different people say. Clayton Sheck said 2%.
Well, it was 2%, but that was also like 5 years ago.
But regardless, it's a much smaller number. The point is, it's a wholly smaller number.
Yeah.
And within that, this is another thing I think people, I consider myself a mezcal nerd, if that's not obvious by now.
Yeah.
And tequila nerd as well.
Yeah.
But not super nerd. I mean, you know a shitload more than I do, and as well as many others know more than I do.
Roy, I'm going to need you to capture that soundbite and use that for the ad in the future.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going, Greg.
But most people, I think, mezcal people would be surprised that 85 or 87%, according to the last report, of all mezcal was espadín.
Oh, yeah, no. In fact, that was 87%, and then you add in the expressions that are an ensemble of espadín and barriles. Yeah, it comes out to like 93%. 93%. 93%. We need to be drinking something other than Blue Weber and espadín, or those species are going to disappear.
Yeah, there's different ways to look at that. I think people want to denigrate those varieties just because they're big and occupy such a large part of the market.
I don't want to denigrate. That's not.
They want to denigrate Weber. Hey, Tequila Weber Azul never hurt anybody.
Well, it did actually. It did. The monoculture of that has hurt a lot of communities in Jalisco and displaced their food sources in the wildland. Oh no, the plant itself hurts the hell out of people. Have you ever touched those things? They got thorns on them and they make me bleed.
Look. What I'm saying, there's nothing inherently bad about that plant or its flavor, or people love the. And even David Suro and Fortaleza, and so there's this prejudice that mezcal people have against tequila. Therefore, they have to be against. You can grow agave. You can grow tequilana agave just the same as you can grow espadín or tobalá or anything else, and
you are running the clock on me now. Okay, so Greg, I hear you, but yeah.
So I was just going to add on. It would surprise me. The next most of that 3.5%, right, 90% is espadín.
Yeah.
So, and of that, the next largest variety is tobalá.
Yeah,
3.5%.
Yeah.
Of
tiny
mezcal.
Yeah.
Of the night. So we're talking like drops in the.
Which is why we need to drink a lot more of it, so that people can plant more of it.
And so how rare? What I'm getting at is those are rare, but now people are starting.
So you should grow some potatorum out there. Let's get some potatorum.
We're starting to.
Really?
Yes.
And some cupriata?
Yes.
Can we get some cupriata?
Yes.
Oh,
but
dude, I dig that. Some pulqueros? Can we have some pulqueros? Can I come out and make pulque at your place? Just say yes.
Not at my place.
Well, that's not very considerate. Like, where's the hospitality? You know, that's the thing that if you're gonna steal the agave from Mexico, Craig, you need to steal the hospitality as well.
The pulque it would be the Americana, which apparently we didn't steal that. But my theory on that, by the way,
well, that's one of them. There's a lot of different ones you can use.
My theory on the Americana is that it was brought by the missionaries, because where you find it in California,
religion is always the thing that causes problems.
Well, it's not a problem, but it's
a fact.
That's where it is, and where you find the agave Americana in California is you'll find it around all the missions, but also old homesteads and ranches. So my theory is that it was brought by families and farm workers, and so on, and that's where it exists.
And we're at 45 minutes now, Craig. So I think we should wrap it up with your.
Was this to warm up?
I think we should wrap with your missionary position, and say that right, unless you've got something else. Like, I think
I just say we all have a lot more in common than we do that divides us.
You know what? I actually agree with that, like, truly and sincerely. Like we've got to stop, aside from you and me arguing about agave, because that's funny. We've got to stop with the divisiveness in general. And I like the idea that the people who argue the most, I find, are the ones who have the closest view of what they want the world to look like and are 5% different in how they approach achieving that vision. And we've got to start being more hospitable to each other. And we need to drink some more agave spirits.
That always helps.
Yeah. Hey, Craig, thank you.
A joy
Sincerely,
talking to you.
Always love talking to you. Let's go meet down in Coahuila, and and I'll catch you next episode.
All right. Great talking to you, Lou.
Thanks. You too, Craig. You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like. Tell your friends. And please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly. Drive responsibly. Eat responsibly too. And listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive. Do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stretching capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.